I am a professional relationship counselor. My main job is to deal with situations where a third party has entered the relationship. I do this to earn money to treat my fiancé, who has leukemia. One day, a wealthy female client gave me a photo of her and a man intimately close together. She told me that her husband was having an affair. I froze. I immediately recognized the man in the photo as my fiancé, Oliver. I said to the person next to me, "Find out who this woman is for me. How dare she approach my man? I want her to pay." The rich woman said. She threw a check for $1 million on the table. Then she slammed the door and left. I silently put the check in my bag. I canceled the engagement party with Oliver 3 days later. When I arrived at the hospital, Oliver was still lying in bed in his hospital gown. There was a crowd around him. Someone jokingly asked, "Young Master Oliver, are you addicted to being in the hospital? He has been in the hospital for 3 whole years." Oh dear, you don't know anything. Oliver might actually be interested in that girl from a humble background. Oliver exhaled slowly, drawing smoke rings, with a slight upturn of the corners of his mouth and a tone of slight contempt. "I just find it interesting that she's so obedient. It's just for fun. Oliver and Emily's daughter are getting married next week. How could he be interested in that country girl? Oliver is so outstanding. That woman is completely unworthy of him." Oliver flicked the cigarette between his fingers. His face wore a teasing expression. He said, "Someone like that, she doesn't even have the qualifications to be my shoe polisher. How could I possibly fancy her?" Everyone laughed. Someone joked, "You can bet on me. Guess how fast this loyal dog will come running after hearing a word from Oliver." Just as he was saying that, my phone dinged. "Sophia, I'm craving your sweet and sour pork ribs again." Oliver was in the hospital room, holding his phone in his hand. His mouth unconsciously curled up into a smile. "You guys need to be careful what you say later. Just think of it as a visit to the doctor." No one noticed. Tears flowed uncontrollably down her face. Her fingernails dug deep into her flesh, but the pain in her chest did not ease at all. "Oliver, there really is no one in the world who can act better than you." After sending him a message, I went straight to the restaurant and ordered extra spicy ribs and a bottle of white wine. I'm going to see how far this drama can go. I walked back into the hospital room. The room was filled with the fresh scent of jasmine. As soon as Oliver saw me, he sat up in bed. He pouted at me. "Sophia, I can't bear it when I can't see you for a while." Oliver didn't hesitate to rest his head on my shoulder. Seemed very intimate. Every time I come into contact with him, I feel uncomfortable. The people around me kept looking down at their watches. My sister-in-law arrived just in time. "Oliver was just telling us about you. I didn't expect you to arrive in 15 minutes. "Yes. Did you bring food for Oliver? We also want to try your cooking." As soon as Oliver heard this, he immediately opened the thermal box. He invited everyone to try it. Before long, everyone's mouth was burning red. The only bottle of water left in the room became the object of everyone's competition. My wife's cooking really doesn't taste that good. I took a bite. The spiciness was unbearable. Oliver looked at me. His face showed an expression of embarrassment. I thoughtfully handed him the mineral water bottle containing white wine. My wife is really good to me. Suddenly, Oliver kissed me. I felt nauseous. My whole body felt uncomfortable. When I came out, I saw that Oliver had already drunk half of the mineral water in his hand. He asked me, "Honey, why is this water so hot?" Before I could explain, someone snatched the water from Oliver's hand and poured it directly into his mouth. After a while, he was jumping around from the heat. Oliver glared at him unhappily and said, "Who told you to grab what my wife gave me? You really did ask for it." While Oliver was talking and walked up to me, he pointed his finger at his lips and said, "Honey, the mineral water tastes a little spicy. This is to earn you medical expenses." I drank the high-proof liquor. Before taking the doctor in, I waited for a while at the door. Someone was laughing next to me. "Young Master Oliver, this person really cares about you, but it's just a little wine, and specially called a doctor for you. Our Oliver is a tall and rich, handsome guy. Oliver is willing to give him a chance to get close. It's already a great honor for him." Oliver raised his eyebrows. His expression was cold. He didn't respond directly. It was just a casual fling. It won't go as far as marriage. Although I had long expected this result. But when I heard these words, a wave of pain still welled up in my heart. 3 years of feelings. It turns out that it was just a game to him. Therefore, his feelings for me over the years. It turns out that it was just an act. So that Emily, who comes from a similar background, is the one he really cares about. Sophia, I'm still a bit nervous. I came back to my senses. I looked up at the fake doctor. I gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder. Chef, I'll give you $1,000 later. Just act like I taught you in the restaurant. Please, I'm on my own out here. I ran into a liar who owes me money. I just want to scare him a bit. The chef nodded vigorously and said, Okay, I'll help you. I can't stand people who don't pay their debts. After he pushed open the door, the discussion in the room immediately stopped. The chef went over to Oliver's bed and told him to stand up for a checkup. Oliver kept winking at the chef and murmured, Just take a look. After a while, the chef helped Oliver in the way he would handle pork. You're not getting enough blood flow because of the alcohol. I'll just help you get it flowing again. Oliver screamed nonstop and muttered under his breath that he wanted to fire the chef. I couldn't help laughing out loud. After half an hour, Oliver was exhausted. The chef clapped his hands and said, There you go. Your Kai and blood are flowing again. His wife cooed. It hurts. A kiss will make it better. I looked at Oliver. His face had turned pale from the previous treatment. I slowly walked over to the bed. With everyone watching, I slapped Oliver hard across the face. The ward fell silent. The atmosphere became extremely heavy. After a few seconds, Oliver covered his red and swollen face and said coldly, Wife, you really care too much about me. Oliver was so angry that he laughed instead, reached out to hug me, but I sidestepped. Oliver, how long are you going to keep this up? Oliver's eyes were a little panicked. Honey, what are you talking about? I really can't stand it anymore. I threw the photo in my bag at him. Oliver's expression collapsed. He almost jumped off the bed. Honey, let me explain. I turned around and was about to leave. Oliver, with red eyes, blocked the door. Someone picked up the photo on the floor. Everyone came forward to persuade Oliver. Oliver, since the matter has been exposed, why don't we just get it straight? That's right. You can't get something back if it's gone. Oliver, don't stop her. I think she already knew about your engagement with Emily, and she's been hanging around you, even if you let her go today. She'll come back to you crying some other day. I've seen a lot of people like her. They're not pure. They always want to take advantage. After hearing this, Oliver seemed to understand something. He let go of the door and said to Sophia, If you leave today, don't come crying to me for a reconciliation. I walked straight to the door, without looking back. Oliver, I never want to see you again in my life. Sitting in the taxi, I still felt heavy inside. Although everything between Oliver and me was fake, I couldn't understand why I still felt such deep pain. Tears kept falling. I sent a message to Emily. The matter has been settled. I'll refund half the money. Not long after I sent the message, I arrived at the flat I shared with Oliver. The flat was full of things for 2 people. It was ironic. I packed up all my things and threw them in the bin. Then I went to the landlord to give notice. The rent here had gone up 5 times. If it weren't for the memories I had with Oliver, I would have moved out long ago. You're not going to take any of these things, I nodded. Then I turned around and was about to leave. Wait, I'll have a look at the flat first. After a while, the landlord's actions surprised me. He squatted on the floor with a flashlight. He said, This floor shows signs of wear. Then he pointed out, doors get old with use. The light bulb also shows signs of use. Don't go yet. Pay the compensation first. I was so angry that I called the police. As a result, I had to pay 3,000 yuan in compensation. As I gritted my teeth and transferred the money to the landlord, Emily sent me a message. You have to pay for what you did. I know. You're the one who broke someone's heart. Now you know what it feels like to be abandoned. The address of the wedding center banquet hall is at the bottom. My hands trembled involuntarily. I felt vaguely that something was wrong. After a while, my mother called. As soon as she spoke, she scolded, You child. You canceled the engagement banquet and changed it to a wedding without telling us in advance. You've made your father and I run around like headless chickens. No, we're not talking anymore. Your father and I have already arrived. Before I could explain, the phone was disconnected. Outside the ballroom, there were jasmine flowers everywhere. There were a lot of people with cameras. Emily and Oliver's wedding photos were clearly displayed at the entrance. Emily, what are you going to do? After the message was sent, I saw my father and mother surrounded by a group of security guards. My mother questioned, What do you mean by this? Why do you say my son-in-law is married to you? Isn't this my daughter's wedding? Emily ignored my mother and walked straight towards me. She whispered in my ear, If you don't want your family to get hurt, just do as I say. How dare you? Emily looked at me, her mouth slightly upturned with a hint of a smile. Sophia, you think I'll let you off the hook so easily? Someone like you dare to ask me. I turned my head to look at my parents. I found them kneeling on the ground, being held down by someone. Emily took me backstage and dressed me in the same wedding dress as hers. As soon as the wedding march started, Emily pushed me onto the stage. When Oliver saw me, he obviously froze for a moment and blurted out, "Why are you here? Why are you wearing Emily's wedding dress, Sophia? You were the one who left in the first place. Now you're pestering me like this. It really makes me feel uncomfortable." Oliver hadn't finished yet. The big screen behind the wedding photos suddenly switched to a series of candid photos. They were all moments of me and Oliver shopping and kissing together. Even our intimate chat history was exposed. The whole scene suddenly became noisy. Oliver's face turned ugly. He grabbed my shoulders tightly. In a stern tone, he asked, "Today is my wedding day with Emily. Don't make me hurt you." His grip on my shoulder hurt. A chill ran down my spine. I broke free of Oliver's grip. Before I could explain, Emily had walked up to me. She threw a black dress in my face. She asked, "Does it look familiar?" The black dress fell to the ground. It was a skimpy bunny girl costume. I felt sick. My stomach churned. Oliver had bought Emily the same kind of lingerie as me. A selfie of me wearing the lingerie appeared on the big screen. Emily took my arm. Countless cameras below took pictures of me. She is a professional third-party repudiation person, but she became a third party herself. She said, "My parents were brought on stage at this time." Oliver had disappeared. Emily took out 10,000 yuan and placed it in front of her mother. She said calmly, 10,000 for a slap." My mother shook her head firmly, "No way," before I could be moved. My mother held up 5 fingers. She said, "She's my biological child, you have to pay more, 50,000. Emily smiled contemptuously. Then she nodded in agreement. Under everyone's gaze, my mother gave me a hard slap to the left and right. It made my head spin. "You really have no sense of shame. How dare you interfere in other people's relationships? I should have stopped you, so you wouldn't have caused so much trouble." My mother scolded me. At the same time, she asked Emily if she could pay more. Emily nodded with a smile. She said the harder the beating, the more money she would pay. My father stood aside. He watched my mother lose control of herself. He moved aside. I almost fainted from the beating. My mother wasn't about to stop. She then stepped on my face with her foot, "Miss Emily, so I can get more money." "Of course you can." I saw my mother's face full of smiles. I felt unbearable pain. I could hardly breathe. "In that case, I'll give her my life." I gradually felt my consciousness fading. My mouth was a little sticky. I reached out to wipe it. I found my fingers were full of blood. My mother followed up with another kick. She stamped heavily on my face. She said coldly, "Getting beaten can earn money for your brother. This is your blessing in life." My mother was panting from exhaustion. She turned around. Smiling, she said to Emily, "Miss Emily, I'm almost done here. How do I give you the money?" Emily looked at me, lying on the ground, barely breathing. She calmly dialed the police. "Auntie, this is a lot of money. Wait here a moment. I'll have someone come and get it." Before I completely lost consciousness. Until the moment the police were about to take my mother away in the police car, she suddenly felt that something was a bit wrong. "Miss Emily, what's going on? Didn't you say you were going to give me money? Why are you arresting me? What's wrong with me educating my own child?" The mother lay on the ground crying. The father glanced at her and said disdainfully, "What a shame." The mother froze for a moment, standing still in place when she was taken away. She was still looking at her father in tears. When I woke up again, I found myself in the hospital. Emily was sitting by my bed. When she saw I was awake, she handed me a check for $500,000. "With a family like that, no wonder you turned out the way you did. Oliver and I grew up together. You were the first girl he liked. But I'm going to marry him. I won't tolerate any interference. Take the money and leave. The further away, the better. Or you know what I'll do." I grimaced and tore the check into pieces. "I'll only take what I'm owed. For $1,000,000. My reputation is ruined." After I recovered, I changed my name to Sophia, determined to cut ties with my past. I went to teach in a remote mountain village. It was even poorer than my hometown. The little girl Lily cried to me. Lily said to her teacher, "Teacher, can you help me persuade my grandmother? She doesn't let me continue going to school. She wants me to marry the bachelor next door." My colleague, Ethan, looked at Lily. He whispered to me not to get involved. At the end of the school day, Lily came to see me again. Her small eyes were red and swollen from crying. She pulled up her sleeve. Her arm was covered in scars of all sizes. Seeing her pitiful appearance, I couldn't help but think of when I was a child. I felt bad in my heart. I decided to follow Lily home. The road to her house was long and dangerous. We took an old cable car across the river. We also walked along a particularly narrow road. If we weren't careful, we could fall off the cliff. It was getting dark. We finally arrived at Lily's house. When we entered, Lily nervously tugged at the hem of her shirt. She hid behind me. Someone asked, "You must be the new teacher. City people are really different. Your skin is so white and tender," the old woman said, while warmly inviting me to come in. As soon as I sat down, the stool creaked and fell apart. Lily quickly helped me up. A little embarrassed, she said, "Teacher, this stool wasn't very sturdy to begin with." The old woman came out and handed me a cup of mung bean tea. Lily kept staring at it. I took the tea and handed it to her. She shook her head vigorously and said, "Teacher, you drink it. You drink it." I put the tea on the table. I explained to the old woman the purpose of this visit. The world beyond the mountains is full of color. Lily can only get out of the mountains by reading. Just as I finished speaking, a burly, dark-skinned man walked out of the house. Lily quickly ran over and closed the door. "Dad, I brought my mom." The man's face wore an evil smile. He slowly approached me. Lily ran over and hugged me tightly. She said, "Teacher, my last mom left. Can you be my new mom?" I trembled all over. I kept backing away. I shouted that this was illegal. The man laughed. His wrinkles on his face crumpled. In a flash, he rushed in front of me. He ripped my jacket open. The man's wet saliva got on my face. I gave him a hard kick. While he was writhing in pain, I ran as fast as I could. I lost my shoe, but I didn't dare to stop. My feet were red and swollen from the friction. I ran and ran. I almost fell off a cliff when I came to my senses. I realized I had lost my way. Am I going to die here, not far away? I saw a man holding a torch. He shouted, "Come out." The man kicked Lily impatiently, urging her on, "Hurry up and find her. If you can't find her, you won't get any food for 3 days." My heart was pounding. It felt as if it would jump out of my throat. I covered my mouth with my hand, hiding in the grass. I dared not make a sound. I finally let out a sigh of relief. When the man had gone, I was about to stand up, when someone suddenly placed a hand on my shoulder, without another word, and started running. A voice came from behind me. "Sophia, it's me." I turned around. It was Ethan. At that moment, I collapsed onto the ground. I had no strength left. He slowly walked towards me with a flashlight. "Why are you so disobedient? I told you not to go home with students," Ethan said as he tore off his shirt and wrapped it around my foot. "Don't you watch the news? Our remote mountain village is actually quite dangerous." I couldn't help crying. His bandaging technique was so clumsy. It made me feel a lot of pain. Ethan glanced at me and said in an unpleasant tone, "I really don't understand how Oliver could fall for someone like you. Have you seen me before?" I tried hard to recall in my mind. Among the friends Oliver had introduced me to, there didn't seem to be anyone like this person. He said, "You've been on the hot search for a few days. It's hard to not recognize you." Suddenly, I recalled the wedding day. My eyes were filled with the sight of cameras. Emily had kept her promise. She had ruined my reputation. I gave a bitter smile. I thought to myself, what can't I accept now? Oliver has been looking for you everywhere. He's going crazy. He even offered a reward for information about you. Can you please not tell him I'm here? Ethan's face was stern, but a mischievous smile appeared. I asked, "So how do you want me to thank you?" I offered to pay him, but he didn't want any money. He asked me to bring him lunch every day. I thought that was a pretty good deal, so I agreed. After Ethan had bandaged my foot, he carried me on his back. I wanted to refuse, but he said if I walked on my own, I would have to be bandaged again when we got back. Thinking about the excruciating pain when I was bandaged, I decided to give in. "You look chubby. I didn't expect you to be so light." Ethan joked, "You look skinny. I didn't expect you to have so much strength." When we were almost at the cable car, I saw the dark-skinned man holding a torch. He was standing there, walking back and forth. I clenched my fists. I tried hard to control the trembling of my voice. "Ethan." It was him who wanted to catch me. Ethan gently put me down in the grass. "Stay here and don't move," he said. Then he walked straight towards the man in black. After a while, I heard a scream. I was so scared that I closed my eyes. I didn't dare to look up. Suddenly, a deep male voice said in my ear, "Sophia, it's okay." I looked up at Ethan. I noticed a bruise on the corner of his mouth. "Does it hurt?" "This little injury is nothing to me." After returning to school, Ethan found a car in the old house. He drove me to the town hospital overnight. Actually, I didn't feel much pain anymore, but Ethan insisted on taking me there right away. He said I was so pretty. It would be a shame if I got an infection and scarring. Hearing him say that suddenly made my heart feel warm. That night, the doctor admitted me to the hospital. Ethan stayed by my side the whole time. He took care of me without leaving my side. I said to him, I'm sorry to make you stay here and take care of me. Ethan gave a small smile, his eyebrows lightly arched. He placed his hand on my head. He gently rubbed it. He said, don't think too much about it. This is just a trivial matter. I just like helping people. This is my pleasure. I stayed in the hospital for a whole month and a half before I was discharged. Ethan commuted between the hospital and school every day. He is really a very good person. After I was discharged from the hospital, I brought Ethan lunch every day for a month. The food in the school cafeteria was bland. I prepared 2 lunches every day and took them to school. After a while, people started to say that Ethan and I were in love. I told Ethan, I can't bring you lunch anymore. They're saying all sorts of things. Ethan asked nonchalantly while eating, what nonsense. My face suddenly flushed. They say we're in love, and finished. I quickly shoveled a few mouthfuls of rice into my mouth to hide my discomfort. Suddenly, Ethan leaned his face close to mine. I didn't hear it. His sudden move made me hold my breath. My heart suddenly started beating wildly. I couldn't help but say, let's just say we're in a relationship. He looked at me, his eyes full of surprise, and a hint of surprise. Yes, I just want to be in a relationship with you. My mind went blank. Ethan took a diamond ring out of his pocket. He put it on my finger. He said, it's not just a relationship, I want to marry you. Ethan looked at me. His eyes were focused and gentle. My heart tightened. At that moment, my phone suddenly rang. I took the opportunity to answer the call. I walked quickly out of the room, but my heart was still pounding. Hello, mistress Sophia. The results of your blood test show that your white blood cell count is high. We suggest that you come to the hospital as soon as possible. Okay. After hanging up the phone, Ethan came up from behind. He asked me softly, Sophia, I'm sorry, did I scare you? I looked into Ethan's eyes. My face suddenly flushed. Upon closer inspection, Ethan is indeed very handsome. He is even better looking than some of the popular stars. I'm sorry. I was too hasty. Ethan lowered his head. His voice was a little choked. It was like he was talking to himself. I couldn't help but laugh. I'm willing. Let's fall in love with the goal of marriage. Ethan looked at me with shining eyes. His hand trembled with excitement as he held mine. I stood on tiptoe, gently kissed his lips, then shyly ran away. Ethan stood in the same place for a long time, shouting, Sophia, I will marry you. I got on the next bus to the hospital. I kept thinking, Ethan, I will marry you. After the test results came back, I sat in the waiting room waiting for the results. My phone kept ringing. It was all messages from Ethan. I had only been gone for half an hour. Sophia, let's go to town tomorrow. Sophia, I still feel like I'm dreaming. I'm especially worried that this is really just a dream. Sophia, I want to introduce you to my friends. There are so many messages that I can't read them all. I've just finished replying to one. The test results are in. They're in the office. The doctor looks serious. The doctor confirms that it is acute myeloid leukemia. To have a bone marrow transplant, I need to go to a big hospital. But I still have to wait for the results of the matching. If I don't have a transplant, how long will I live? A few months, probably. I froze in place. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I had finally met someone I truly loved. But then I suddenly found out that I had leukemia. Fate really plays tricks on people. After returning to school, I secretly handed in my resignation to Ethan. I didn't want to upset him, so I decided to leave quietly without telling him. Ethan really depends on me. Especially after we confirmed our relationship, he became even clingier. Ethan said to me with a smile, Sophia, you're so cute. The more I look at you, the more I like you. He said while he put a piece of meat in my bowl. Her face is round and round. It's so beautiful. I held back my tears, biting my lips tight, not letting the tears fall. Ethan, I won't be able to see you again. At the weekend, Ethan said he wanted to take me to meet his friends. Now, the day of my resignation has arrived. I nodded and agreed. Let's consider this our farewell, Sophia. You don't need to bring so much. We're only going for 2 days. It's fine. Go see your friends. I want to be well prepared. After that, a large suitcase was loaded into the trunk. I was in no mood for the whole trip. Ethan was also silent the whole time. The atmosphere was particularly heavy. It felt like the calm before the storm. The car stopped in front of a villa in the suburbs. This place doesn't really look like a party place. I didn't think much about it. I followed Ethan into the villa. As soon as I entered, I saw Oliver sitting in the middle of the crowd. I gradually felt that something was a bit wrong, but I didn't want to doubt Ethan. He has been so good to me. How could he lie to me? I took his arm. I asked in a low voice, "Isn't Oliver your sworn enemy? Why is he here?" Ethan looked at me. He didn't say anything for a long time until Oliver came over and pulled me into his arms. Ethan said slowly, "I'm sorry, Sophia. I can't believe this is real." I squeezed my arm hard, feeling a lot of pain. Oliver put on an air of masterly dominance and said to Ethan, "Okay, you can go out first. You don't need to worry about this." Ethan looked at me with a somewhat complicated look in his eyes and then turned and walked away. My heart ached so much I could hardly breathe. Am I just something for people to play with? Time and again, they had made a fool of me. My thoughts were interrupted by laughter. "Oliver, what kind of woman do you want? No, this girl who looked so ordinary. Why go to all this trouble, indeed?" She looked a lot worse than Emily. I couldn't stand it anymore. I grabbed the bottle on the table and threw it at the people who kept swearing. "Stop it, be quiet. I just love the wrong person. Why do you have to put me down?" Oliver's face was gloomy. He walked towards me. I clutched the broken bottle and stabbed him violently. The glass fragments pierced his palm deeply. With that bleeding hand, Oliver tightly gripped my chin. "Sophia, I like you. You're lucky. Don't you dare try to escape." After saying that, Oliver kissed me hard on the lips. I felt like my lips were going to lose their feeling. After Oliver's friends left, he locked me in a small, dark room. He said that this was my punishment, but in fact, he was the one who betrayed my feelings. The one who really deserved to be punished wasn't me at all. A whole week later, I finally got out of the small, dark room. Oliver was also particularly gentle today. His peach-colored eyes were fixed on me the whole time. "Honey," he said, "I heard you changed your name. Sophia is definitely better than Sophia." I kept my head down, stuffing food into my mouth. I ignored him. Oliver continued, "Ever since you left, I haven't been able to sleep at night. Now that you're back, I won't let you go again. Once I've taken complete control of the household, I'll divorce Emily. You'll have a proper status so that you can be by my side every day." I put down my chopsticks. I look straight into Oliver's eyes. I speak word by word. As soon as Oliver hears what I have to say, he loses his patience. He orders me to be locked up in the dark room again. As soon as the door closes, I suddenly feel dizzy. I fall to the ground. When I wake up again, Auntie has come to bring me food. Auntie rushes to call Oliver and told him I had a nosebleed. I wiped the blood from my face and begged Auntie if I could stay outside for a little longer. It was really stuffy in the small dark room. I felt like I couldn't see any hope in that place. Auntie quickly locked me back in. She said there were surveillance cameras there. Oliver would see. The next few days, I felt really dizzy. I had a fever and a nosebleed. Auntie called and said she wanted to take me to the hospital, but she couldn't get through to Oliver. Auntie guessed Oliver was probably busy preparing the wedding again with Miss Emily. I leaned against the wall and slowly walked back to the dark hut. Before Auntie could close the door, I felt a blackout. In my daze, I seemed to hear Oliver's voice. "Sorry, I'm late, Sophia. Don't go." I heard rapid footsteps all around me. They seemed very anxious. 200 joules once, 200 joules twice slowly. I couldn't even hear the sound. When I regained consciousness, I found myself covered in tubes. Except for my eyes, I could barely move. I could barely move my fingers. Oliver was crying very hard, as if he really loved me. He said, "Sophia, if I had known that something would happen to you that day, even if I fell out with Emily's family, I would have stayed by your side. You must really hate me. I did do the wrong thing. It's only natural that you hate me." I looked at Oliver. Tears flowed down my face. I really do hate him. My days are numbered. But he's making me suffer so much in the last moments of my life. There were footsteps outside the door again. It was my mother, who had just been released from prison. She grabbed Oliver by the collar. She was shouting and screaming, "You've made my daughter like this. You have to pay compensation. 1 million, not a penny less." I happen to have exactly 1 million in the bank. Why should I have to trade my life for money? Now I've lost the last bit of dignity I had. If I could, I'd wish I'd never been born. I close my eyes. I don't want to see my mother screaming for money. Her shrill cries ring in my ears, one after the other. They're unbearable. "Oliver, you bastard. You killed my daughter and won't pay compensation. I'll make sure this guy can't rest in peace," my mother said, while reaching out to pull me away. She pulled the tubes off me recklessly. Oliver couldn't hold back anymore. He kicked my mother to the ground. "You old fool. If it weren't for Sophia, I would have finished you off a long time ago." "What Sophia? This is my daughter Sophia. She has spent her whole life worrying about her brother. Hearing these words, I no longer felt anything. No emotion stirred in my heart. In the end, my mother didn't get a single penny. She was taken away for causing a disturbance. That night, I saw Ethan again. He looked much older. His hair had turned a little gray. He gently touched my diamond ring. Tears fell onto my face. Sophia, I'm sorry. I had no choice. The family business needs a large sum of money to tide it over. I actually used you to ransom money, Ethan said, slapping his face. I really should scold you. I was going to save you after a while. Unexpectedly, he held my hand tightly, saying, Sophia, you will get better. I did a bone marrow match today. It matched yours. I can transplant it to you soon. Seeing him like this, I felt a pang of sadness, but I still couldn't forgive him. In the early morning hours, I saw Emily again. She unplugged the oxygen tube from my body and silenced the alarm. She said to me, you took my money. You should do what you need to do. You shouldn't have come back. I watched Emily walk away. Breathing became more and more difficult. My consciousness began to blur. I never imagined that the check for $1 million would become my death warrant. Mom, you were right.